Jazz! Hi friends, I'm the saxophone oracle. This week we're going to talk about articulation in jazz. This could be a really big topic, but I just want to go over the basics, right? So you'll notice when we're looking at music, there's all kinds of little symbols we come across. We see the dot, the staccato, we see the different accents, the line. So I just want to talk about how each of these are interpreted so that when we come across it in our music, we can play with more confidence and more stylistically correct, right? Articulation in general in jazz is a huge topic, so we're not going to go deep into it. We're not going to go about turns and twists and the way, Dexter Gordon tongues versus Sonny Rollins versus none of that. Just the basics. There's basically three ways we need to learn how to articulate. There's basically 5 accent markings that we see on top of notes very commonly that we have to learn how to deal with. And that's about it. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how we approach eighth notes. All right, so here we go, articulation in jazz. All right, first things first, articulation in jazz. There's basically 3 syllables we have to learn that we're going to use while we're tonguing. Okay, so the first one is do, D-O or D-O-O. This is what we use for a long note. So do, 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 do. Simple enough. Do, 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 do. The next one is dit, D-I-T. So we use this when we play very short notes. We start the note with the tongue, we stop the note with the tongue. Dit, dit, dit. And this is the one big difference between, say, classical playing and jazz playing. When we play a short staccato note, we end it with the tongue as well as start it with the tongue in jazz. So dit, D-I-T. The last one is also a short note, but when we play full value, and that we would use a syllable dot. So I think D-A-H-T or D-O-T, dot, dot, dot. So a full value quarter note with starting and stopping with the tongue. Those are the 3 syllables. So do, dit, dot. At first, it's going to take some practice. You're going to need to get used to starting and stopping with the tongue. It might be a little bit awkward, but those are the syllables. Stick with it. You're going to get it. So where do we use these syllables? Well, here we go. Basically, there's 5 articulation markings you're going to commonly come across. The first is when we see a note, a quarter note, with nothing at all, right? It's just a quarter note sitting on a page. Generally speaking, we're going to play that on the shorter side, dot. So anything medium tempo and up, it's going to generally be a shorter note. There are exceptions. And then if we're playing on the slower side, medium to down, then that's going to be more legato, do, do, do. But I'd say 60 to 70% of the time, if you see a quarter note without anything, you're going to go dot, dot, dot. Full value, but a little bit shorter. That's about it. That's all I can say about that. So no marking. It's going to tend to be on the shorter side unless you're playing at a slower tempo. The next common thing you're going to see is the staccato, the little dot over top of the note. And when you see that, you're going to play it very short with the syllable dit. So D-I-T, it's going to be not exactly full length, right? It's going to be a quarter note, but it's going to be on the shorter side. Dit. So you see the little dot, it's a dit, very short. Okay, next, when we see the little hat or the little roof over top of the note, that's going to be heavily accented, and that's where we're going to use dot, right? We're going to do a heavy accent, start the note and stop the note with the tongue. Next, we see the accent like that over top of a note. That, I mean, it's a full value. We're going to use the syllable do, but we're going to give a little extra oomph. Do. We're going to lean into it, if you will. So. Full value, we're not stopping it with the tongue, we're just leaning in on the initial attack. So that's that one. So that's 4. The 5th accent is when we see the little line, I think it's called a tenuto. Then that is full value, very connected, legato. We're going to use the syllable do again, and very lightly. Do, 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 do. That's that. 5, and we use them. The only syllables we use are do, dit, and dot. And you're well on your way to interpreting the jazz music you're reading more correctly, more convincingly. 2 more things I'm going to talk about. First, we'll talk about, there's a very common rhythm where we see an 8th note followed by a quarter note followed by an 8th note. Do dot, da do dot, da do dot, da do dot. And that's how we play it. That quarter note in the middle is the shorter. We use the dot syllable. So the 2 8th notes that surround it are on the longer side. Do dot, da do dot. Etc. So do 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 dot da do dot. Okay, super common rhythm. That's how we articulate it. The last thing I want to focus on with you today is 8th notes. So there's a couple things I'm going to say about 8th notes. I don't want to go too deep into it, but first of all, if we're reading our jazz band music and we have a string of 8th notes, they're basically played legato. Do da do da do da do da do da do da da. However, anytime an 8th note or a quarter note on the offbeat is followed by a rest. So you have a string of 8th notes and then one of them is followed by a rest. That 8th note is always played short, usually with the dit syllable. So. Do 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 da do dit. Okay, so generally speaking, 8th notes are very legato, very connected, unless followed by a rest. Then we go short with a dit. Okay, last thing I'm going to say about 8th notes. This one I could go deep into. I don't want to. I just want to point it out. Okay, in jazz we talk about playing swung 8th notes, how it's kind of like a triplet feel. Da 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 da. I don't like that. I can't stand it personally. And oftentimes we'll see that in the music. You'll see at the top they'll have 2 8th notes and they'll say equals. It'll be like a quarter note with the 8th note and the triplet. So do da do da do da do da do da do da do, and that's what it sounds like, right? Hey, a do da do da do, but so unless you're playing a really heavy shuffle, it's not that. And that's kind of the telltale sign that you have like someone who's never heard jazz music before or never spent any time being serious about it, is when you hear someone playing 8th notes that way. So while there is a slight accent, we're playing the 8th notes legato, there's a slight accent to the upbeat. They're really on the straighter side. Maybe they're slightly behind, but I think, for my taste anyway, jazz 8th notes, they still tend to be quite straight. It's just there's a slight accent to the upbeat, right? Right? That's swung 8th notes. They're quite legato, slight accent on the upbeat, right? The other way that we see it written, right? It's not that. It's awful. It sounds so hokey. So try and think of them as straighter eighth notes with just a slight accent, a slight bounce to it. That, my friends, is the basics of jazz articulation. I'm the Saxophone Oracle. There you have it. Jazz articulation was the topic this week. I hope this information was useful. I hope it helped clarify things. I hope it brings some confidence to your playing. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, drop them below. Send me an email. I'd love to address them in any future videos. Thank you, as always, for continuing to watch. I wish you happy practicing. Have a great week. See you next Tuesday. Bye for now.